Now on the D3Football.com Around the Nation podcast, pleased to be joined by Brian Polian, the new head coach at John Carroll University football. Of course, not new to John Carroll, not even new to John Carroll as an athletics employee. Let's put it that way. Brian, first of all, thanks for taking the time today. And secondly, just tell us about your decision process to, go from athletic director to athletic director and head football coach.
Sure. Well, I'm a John Carroll alumnus, so I feel very deeply about the institution itself. I've been very connected ever since I left campus in the spring of 1997. I embarked on a 25-year coaching career that at the highest levels of college football that brought me all over the country. Like a lot of others, started a family. I have a child that's got some challenges, was living down in Louisiana and coaching at LSU with Brian Kelly. But given how many times I had moved my children, the state of high-level college football right now with the transfer portal and name, image, and likeness, just recognized that it was time to maybe make a change. And so I put family first and came back to John Carroll as the athletic director and was promoted to vice president and had thought, okay, I'm going to be in this role, but my family's really happy. My kids are rooted. They have a community now. My son's doing the best he's ever done. So I considered myself very blessed. But I missed coaching a great deal. When Jeff Behrman, about a month ago, was offered the Bucknell job, I actually spent the first week putting together my list of candidates, began vetting people out, was shocked at the amount of interest there was in our job.
I'm sure.
From across the country. We have for those who don't know, we have a great coaching lineage here from the National Football League out to multiple time state champions at the high school level. So I was vetting that list. And after a week, I went to separately our president and our chairman of the board to update them on where we were in the process. And independent of one another, they both said to me, if you miss coaching and you would like to get back, we would like you to consider yourself as a candidate. And the big thing for me is I did not want to give up my VP role as the head of the athletic department. And I felt like I could do both jobs. It has been done here. Tony DiCarlo did it really well. Larry Karras did it exceptionally well at Mount Union. So there was precedent. But I did take a week to reflect and kind of pray. And ultimately, I did talk to other candidates because I did not want to make a selfish decision just that was going to make me happy. I wanted to make sure that we were making the right choice for our football team. And ultimately, it was my last candidate, who I won't tell you who it was, but
all right,
we were having a dinner together. And after about 2.5 hours of conversation, he said to me, he's like, listen, nobody's got a better plan for this thing than you do right now. So, and he was an alumnus, and he said, as much as I'd love the job, if you took it, I think I'd be thrilled. And so I came home to my wife that night and I said, you know what? I miss it. And I feel good about my ability to do this job. And so I went to our president, to our board chair, and they were great about it.
It feels like, yes, obviously there was enough different opinions that all led you in that direction. I can certainly understand that. I'm also glad you said that about a job candidate being satisfied if you took the job, because I'd have to think, if I interviewed for that job, and maybe I don't have the same connection that your last person did, and then instead of hiring me, the hiring manager hired themselves, I don't know how I would react to that, frankly.
No, and listen, I was sensitive to that, right? Like, when the athletic director names himself head coach and automatically on social media you get, well, the interview process must have been strenuous, right? Or, it was not an ego trip by any stretch. And I really took time and I talked to stakeholders around the university. I talked to other coaches in the department and said, would you be okay with this? And actually, I got a great piece of feedback from our women's basketball coach, Beth Andrews, who I think the world of, and she's a really bright coach. And Beth said, if I had done this 3 years ago when I first arrived, it would not have been okay. But since I've proved to everybody in the department that I care about every sport and that I'm here to support every student athlete through every program, that they're enthusiastic about it now. So I think it was just the right time, but I was thoughtful about it, and ultimately I listened to a lot of folks before we went in this direction.
You talked about, of course, the state that Division One football is in right now, and your coaching career is long and deep in that level, including 2013 to 2017 as head coach at the University of Nevada. Now, we are, of course, not immune to the transfer portal here at the Division III level. We kind of see it perhaps from the other end, where a kid these days, it seems like really good kids might get developed at this level for a year or two and then go somewhere else. We're not getting away from the transfer portal. What's your thoughts about how that works for us at the D3 level compared to what you've seen and observed at the higher levels?
So I've been in a lot of these conversations at the national level and certainly at the conference level. And I think one of the mistakes that we make in D3 is that we believe that we are immune to the societal changes and what expectations are. And, oh, transfers, that doesn't happen in the D3 level. Everybody picks the one place and they stay there for 4 years and everything's sunshine and rainbows. And the reality of it is there is a trickle down effect. We're seeing it right now. I mean, I think about our basketball team. Like 3 years ago, we were ranked number one in the country for about a 6-week stretch, and we had 3 D1 transfers in our starting 5.
Yep.
All Northeast Ohio kids, all made a choice that they were not happy about, and they ended up coming down here. And in part, one of the reasons that they came is because every time they looked up, every year their roster at the place they were at was completely different. The quality of athlete that we are getting right now at the D3 level has jumped significantly in just the last 5 years, because there's fewer and fewer opportunities for high school kids right now. We're recruiting football players right now that 10 years ago absolutely would have been MAC players. But right now, I can only, Akron, Kent, BG, they're signing 6 high school kids and taking 20 transfers.
Yeah, wow.
So there's been a trickle down effect. And then I do not sit in judgment of any kid that is looking for a better situation. And I think a lot of our kids come here and they just want to play, right? They're tired of being the third guy on the depth chart in a MAC school when they come down here and play at Mount Union, play at Ohio Northern, play at John Carroll, and play at a really high level in a competitive environment. So it's been the academics and the administrators that, like, you have to wrap your head around this. Like our quarterback, Nick Semptenfelter, came from Bucknell. He left here with an MBA. Tell me why that's a bad thing that Nick left here with an MBA and a 3.9 GPA. So we just have to, the world is changing, and we have to wrap our head around the fact that it comes to our level in a certain degree, and we have to be okay. Listen, people don't have to be okay with it. We are. As long as they're good kids and they fit our culture and they're going to handle their academics correctly, if we're a better fit, then we're happy to take them.
For a long time, when people thought about John Carroll football and the next level, the first thing that comes to mind as a player, that is, obviously you talked about there's a lot of coaches and a lot of administrators with John Carroll backgrounds in the NFL. But of course, everybody's talking about London Fletcher. And I think maybe I see a London Fletcher jersey over your left shoulder there. The talk, obviously, this week while we're having this conversation is about Ty Montgomery, guy who is a wide receiver for the Blue Streaks over the course of the past couple of years, who made all sorts of waves down at the Senior Bowl. Tell us a little bit about, I assume people are calling and talking to you because not only, of course, are you right there at John Carroll, but you have that experience seeing what talent at the D1 level looks like. What are people asking, and what are you kind of telling them?
Well, it's funny. Frank Ross, the special teams coordinator of the Texans, Ty broke all of Frank's records here, all the receiving records.
There you go.
Frank called me from the Senior Bowl at Mobile. And he's like, Brian, the minute this guy jogged onto the field, I could tell he was different. I'm like, yeah, he's a really bouncy, really twitched up, excellent athlete, and he's a wonderful human being. And he's a great example. Like, 10 years ago, Ty Montgomery does not come to John Carroll. John Carroll would have made it too difficult, and Ty would not have looked at us. But we've adjusted and the world has changed, and Ty is such a special story. He's only played 3 years of organized football.
Right.
We literally evaluated flag football film of him, and we were willing to take a chance on this young man. He worked his tail off to pay his tuition. His family moved from Texas to Canton, Ohio. God rest your soul. He unfortunately lost his mom not long ago to cancer. This is a great kid with a great family, and I can't help but cheer for him with every fiber of my being, not only because he represents our institution and we were lucky enough to have him for 2 years, but also because, I mean, his story is just incredible. You know, never played high school football, goes out, plays in a men's league, and has somebody filming it to try and put film out there. And Jeff Behrman and our staff, they deserve the credit for giving this kid a chance. And he's turned into what he's turned into.
Yeah, and for those who want to read a little more, we wrote a feature on him back in September. We will include that in the show notes as part of this podcast. And along with, if you're watching on the video version, you can look at the show notes for that as well. Right, this is a guy who, of course, started off his collegiate career playing basketball and then came back to play football. And, obviously finishing as an All-American at the D3 level and then making waves here in the kind of recruiting postseason kind of setup and situation.
Yep.
So you are, you switch gears over the course of the past couple weeks. What does the recruiting class look like? I know, these days, a lot of this work has already been done and that sort of thing. So what are you looking like for coming into the fall?
Well, I think the thing I'm most excited about is a lot of recruits recognized how special the season was in 2025 and, making the run to the NCAA semifinal. I think our brand and the NCAC move has been received incredibly well by prospects and their families. I've always been involved in the football program. I wasn't on staff. I was the athletic director, but every top recruit that would come through, I always met with. And frankly, I just enjoyed watching tape. So I would look at every guy that was coming to campus for a visit. I enjoy the recruiting so much. The day after my press conference here, I was in 6 high schools in Northeast Ohio. Like, I wanted to get off campus and I spent 2 days in Pittsburgh this week. It was great. I enjoy the recruiting piece. I like to think that I'm pretty good at it. It's been successful thus far. Now, the good news for us is that we don't need a huge class. We're hoping to commit between 25 and 30 guys in this class, which in the D3 space is not huge. It's big. It'd be a big D1 class, but it's not a huge D3 class.
Right.
And I feel like we've got a great jump start. I acknowledge if we're going to get over this hump and do something that's never been done before here, which is win a national championship in football, we need to get bigger on the lines of scrimmage. Like when we go up against North Central, when you go up against Whitewater and River Falls, and when you see Bethel and on film, and when the Mount teams are really good, like, it feels like we're not as stout. We've got the skill people. Like, we match up there. I don't feel like we're as stout on the lines of scrimmage. And that's been a point of focus for us here in this recruiting class. And thus far, I'm pleased with the results.
How about the portal for you guys? So I one of these things that we look at this point is like, when do classes start for the spring semester, right? This is one of the things that coaches have kind of talked about kind of below the surface, below the radar recently, is that if you have like a J term or some other way where you have a late start to your spring, you get some advantage in the portal because guys who do not get, what they're looking for might have an opportunity to come enroll at a D3 if your date is late enough. So with you guys starting on January 12th, and I don't know when, the last possible day to add classes is, but were you able to, have some success in bringing guys in at the semester for spring ball?
We brought one guy in, but by and large, anything we do in the portal will be, guys that we add in the summertime, and we are in conversations. Um, we're unique in the D3. And by the way, I appreciate you mentioning like the J term. Like, I think one of the things that the leadership of D3 gets hung up in, well, we have to be equitable. And I used to tell people
Mm.
all the time, like, do you think it was equitable for Notre Dame to play Georgia, or Stanford to play Oregon? Like, those are very different institutions with different requirements.
Yeah, for
Like,
sure.
listen, we all play by the same set of rules, but there are inherent challenges and inherent advantages in every job. They're just different depending on where you are. We don't have a J term. That's not great. We don't have that in between term, so it makes it harder for us to get guys, because when they're in the portal now, they still think they're going to hit their dream school. Reality is going to strike in late February, early March, and then we're talking to kids about coming in the summertime. What we do have, though, is we have grad school, because
Yeah.
we have a college of business and we have grad programs here. So now, if you get that D1, D2 guy that suffered an injury, that has a hardship waiver and has a year remaining, now you come to us the way Nick Semptenfelter did, with not only a COVID year, but also a knee injury. And so the guy gets an MBA here. We have a 1-year MBA program that's going to be attractive to somebody that might have a year remaining due to a hardship. So our guys are typically, hey, I'm interested in the counseling program and interested in the MBA. Can I come play? And we are in those discussions, and we're very open to those things. I don't think there's anything wrong with it.
You talked about wanting to get off campus, and of course, in your dual role, being on campus is kind of important, right? You
Yeah.
are, the chief administrator for an athletic department with, I don't have the list in front of me, but dozens of sports, right? So how are you going to strike that balance? How are you going to be able to get out there and do the things that you need to do and still, keep the important parts of the rest of the Blue Streak athletic department running?
So that's a great question. It was a question that the administrators, the leadership here, asked me, and I literally put it on paper for them. This is what it will look like during the football season. From this time to this time in the morning, I'm with the staff. From this time is dedicated to administrative work. I've got great people around me. Dejan Mladenovic is our men's soccer coach. He's an alumnus. He's been here forever. So we promoted Decky
Yep.
to deputy senior deputy athletic director. He's going to take a lot of the day-to-day kind of minutia. Like, we had challenges 3 days after I assumed the role. We dealt with weather in men's and women's basketball and trying to reschedule, moving times up. The NCAC office dealt with Decky the entire time. It worked beautifully because I was on the road recruiting, right? So they got to have somebody to talk to. I think structurally we're set up for that. There's going to be some learning on the fly. There's no doubt. And I'm trying to get creative. Like, I go out and represent the university all across the country in alumni and enrollment events.
Sure.
Well, when I do those, I'm going to recruit, right? I'm going to Buffalo next week for an admitted students reception. I'm going to be in 6 high schools in Buffalo. I'll do this same thing in Rochester. I'll do the same thing in Chicago. So I'm gonna combine my time when I'm out.
I am not would it be one to question your choice of deputy athletic director. My only thought was that that's another person with a fall sport, right?
Yeah, he's young. He's got lots of energy. He'll be fine.
I appreciate that. All right. So obviously a lot of noise this past year about the joining the North Coast, leaving the Ohio Athletic Conference. A lot of talk then, back from John Carroll supporters. This is not just about football. This is about the entire athletic department and being associated with. These are my words. Obviously, other people may feel differently, but I think people. Certainly the North Coast schools feel like they are a different group of schools than the OAC is. And then, of course, you guys come out and then get the win in the playoffs to really kind of put a whole bunch of that stuff to rest. I know I'm kind of treading back over some things that have already been talked about, but, I haven't had a chance to talk about them with the athletic director. So what's been has this stuff all kind of simmered down now finally?
Oh, it certainly did after the playoff game.
Yeah.
So Look, the very lazy narrative was that John Carroll's leaving the OAC
Yeah.
because they're tired of losing to Mount Union. And it couldn't be further from the truth. First of all, an institutional decision driven by one sport is insanity.
At least at the
And
D3 level,
actually,
right?
yeah, it was not there. Nothing about it was actually even driven by athletics. It was driven by the university's desire
Hmm.
and the acknowledgement. Listen, higher ed is in a really volatile space right now.
Yeah.
Notre Dame College closed.
Right.
Ursuline College just merged with Gannon. 40 institutions in the last 5 years have closed, 35 have merged. So we can't be 70% of our student body from the state of Ohio.
Hmm.
The demographics tell us that's not viable. We have to open our footprint as an institution. We want to recruit Charlotte, North Carolina, Boston, Jersey, Atlanta. We're doing really well in Denver, Colorado right now. Like, we need to open our footprint for our student body. And the reality of it is, the NCAC schools like Denison, 50% of the student population outside of the state of Ohio. Ohio Wesleyan, like 48% outside of the state. Kenyon, Oberlin, really well regarded national brands. And we just decided that as an institution, given what we want to do, we can't be a regional school. There's too much competition. We need to be a more national brand. And in order to do that, we had to be paired with people that do that. And listen, I have the utmost respect for everybody in the OAC. These are great partners and friends. I said publicly, we're not running from Mount Union. If we do what we're supposed to do and they do what they always do, we'll find each other. The NCAA will make sure of it.
Oh, that's true. Yes.
So the one I'm sad about losing is Baldwin Wallace. And I didn't want to lose it.
Yeah.
And I've gone on record. I'll say it here. I have no problem. I want to play Baldwin Wallace in every sport. It's a non-conference game that's 45 minutes apart. Instead of each of us, I'm driving to Pittsburgh, they're going to Michigan to find non-conference games. It's costing you money. And instead of playing for the Cuyahoga Gold Bowl trophy, we need to have an all-sport trophy, an east-west side of Cleveland. We'll get a corporate sponsor at the end of the year, add up the points, and here's the champion of Cleveland. And I wish we could do that, but right now it's a little raw about our decision to leave, and I respect that too, right? But our decision had nothing to do with sports. Now I will tell you this too, and I just said this to a group of recruits. This myth that the NCAC is a lesser level of competition. Throughout the course of the year, there were 3 NCAC teams that were ranked in the top 25 for 5 weeks or more. There was one in the OAC. At the end of the year, in the top 40 composite, there were 4 NCAC programs and there was 1 OAC program. And as I watch our basketball teams compete, as I watch our swimmers compete, like, the NCAC is great athletics, and the football is better than I thought it was. Wabash and DePaul will compete against anybody in the OAC. So it was people were all up in their feelings and they had a lot of opinions, but I can assure you the league that we went to is a really high quality league.
And adding Wash U in football coming up this fall,
yeah.
obviously, is going to make the top of the NCAC even better in football.
Yep.
I'm going to ask what might be a bit of an awkward question. I probably should have tested this with you beforehand, but Dean Paul is a longtime, beloved coach at the Division III level. Became a defensive coordinator at John Carroll. Is he staying on?
Yes. I mean, as we sit here today, Dean is our defensive coordinator, associate head coach. He was on my list of candidates. He and I had a very long and frank discussion where I told him, hey, I am thinking about this. I was incredibly transparent with Dean. I also told him, if I decide to do this, it's very important to me that you stay. I think the world of Coach Paul. I think the job that look, I mean, offensively, when we got off the bus, there were 3 guys that you would say, oh, they look different. Defense, we were a collection of guys. And Dean did a superb job of getting those guys to play within their roles, He's got an excellent demeanor. Like, I think the world of him. And as long as I'm here, he's got a place. And I value him a great deal. And I also, listen, I value his experience. My head coaching experience and all of my coaching experience comes at the D1 level.
Hmm.
There are different challenges here. There are
Yep.
different organizational challenges. And Dean has been a really steady hand and somebody that I go to a lot to ask for help because he's got knowledge.
Usually when a new coach gets hired at Division III level and has a resume that even slightly resembles yours, I might say we are not getting folks who have formerly been Division I FBS head coaches, right? But someone who's been at the D1 level for their entire career, I look at them and I go, are they going to understand, if nothing else, how to recruit without having scholarships? You having, of course, Coach Paul on staff and having been, the athletic director for the past several years as well, means that at least I don't ask those questions, and people who do probably aren't paying attention.
No, it's part of the transition, right? But everything that you do turns into a value proposition. And occasionally we'll have a student athlete in any number of sports will come in and say, listen, I can go to this institution for this number. Your institution is going to be at this number for me when all the aid has been factored in. Like, help me through this process. And it's a value proposition, right? Like, we have an excellent academic reputation. Our outcomes are elite. The Jesuit piece, like, we are a faith-based institution. We're a competitive environment. I like to think that our location here in Northeast Ohio, in proximity to Fortune 500s and internships and a great social scene. A lot of D3s, this, a lot of D3s are out in a field somewhere and you're 45 minutes from nothing, right? So we try to factor all those things in and listen, it's a value proposition. I acknowledge that the cost is different, but what's the value? And so that conversation occurred at Notre Dame, Texas A&M, LSU. Here, it's just, here they have to pay out a little bit.
I know we're running up on the end of the time that you and I agreed to have time available for each other. Do you have time for two more questions?
Of course.
All right. So first off, the way you described the institution just now, and I think, how you described earlier in terms of wanting to go to Denver and all sorts of like Charlotte, North Carolina, strikes me as very similar to what the University of St. Thomas had talked about itself. That's, of course, the school in St. Paul, Minnesota that was in D3 and has moved with some really good success to the NCAA Division I level. Also Catholic schools, also in large cities. That sounds like a very familiar part of that playbook, to be honest.
Yeah, it does. Although, I mean, I don't think I've had people around here wonder, like, in 1990, should we have become St. Bonaventure, right? Or should we have said, okay, we're going to be a D1 institution and play in the Pioneer League in football the way that Dayton
like
does,
Dayton,
and Davidson. And you know what? In 1990, that would have been, I think it would have been a great idea. But right now, the finances, the economics of it are just overwhelming. Like, we would need a new basketball facility. We're landlocked, right? I'm sure the folks at Dayton right now, when it's just basketball scholarships, you can compete, but now it's an NIL war.
Yeah.
And if you're if you're Xavier right now and you're fighting for student body, let alone NIL and things like that, I think it's become a different world. And I'm not sure that this would ever be the time and place, but in 1990, it would have been a hell of an idea.
Lastly, I'll just kind of close with this thought, with this question. You mentioned some of the other schools that are like, nationally recognized educational brands in your conference. And certainly I can't argue with that. In 1990, I applied to and almost went to Oberlin. So I certainly understand that as a guy coming from the Twin Cities in Minneapolis, St. Paul. Oberlin has really struggled in football. They've struggled so much that, the conference literally truncated those games to be 12-minute quarters. What can be done? How can those guys kind of get themselves up off the mat and be in a position where, the not having to change the rules of the game in order to protect the program.
I understand the question. I will tell you, if you look at the last 25 years of the OAC,
Yeah.
there were a couple of people that looked similar to Oberlin. Now, nobody ever came and said, we need 12-minute quarters, but if
Right.
you look at some of the scores,
Oh, yeah.
so I think it's a fair question. I think that's where people get the false view of the NCAC, because there have been a couple that traditionally have not either supported football or have had a difficult time. But competitively, like, both sides have a couple where you go into it and you're like, we're going to have two guys in the number 57 this week, and they're both going to play in the game. And, you know, I don't pass judgment on that, because those institutions, like, I think of Wilmington down in Southern Ohio. Wilmington has struggled a little bit in football over the
Hmm.
last bunch of years, but they've got national champions on the track and field team, right? So every place is kind of, not everybody's great at everything.
Yeah.
I applaud what Oberlin's doing right now. Natalie Winkelfuss and their staff, they want to be good. They're trying. I think institutionally they understand that it's just good for the university if you can get the thing where it's competitive, and I don't think there's any reason that it can't be. Um, Obviously, for everybody in our league, we don't want to play a team that's got 45 guys on the roster. Um, but I know that they're working on it, and that was a concern. But how does Kenyon swimming view John Carroll swimming, right? Like, I mean,
Sure.
everybody, there are have and have nots across all this. Denison men's tennis is
Okay.
a juggernaut. When they look at John Carroll's men's tennis team, what do they see? So I think a lot of attention gets paid to football and to men's and women's basketball. And I get that. I mean, that's the nature of college athletics. But I think people are trying, and by and large, they're doing the best they can. And look, I mean, I look at our schedule. We're going to play Carnegie Mellon non-conference in Pittsburgh. We're at WashU. We're at DePaul. We got Wabash at home. I mean, look, if we're being very honest, name the last time we had an OAC schedule that had four dudes on it like that. So, you know, we're still finding a way to play a good NPI schedule that, if we handle our business, if we win the conference, we the automatic bid. If we don't, we should be in the conversation for one of those at-large bids.
Coach, I appreciate your time. Thanks for giving me a good extended period of your day today, and good luck this season.
I appreciate that. I appreciate the chance to be with you.